Today, our guest is Mark Hamill, and we will be talking about the importance of advisory boards, in particular, when they operate in technology, health, and sustainability sectors. Don't go away. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the CRUZAMENTO Podcast. In today's show, we will talk about the intersection of technology, healthcare, and sustainability. My name is Daniel Guedelha, and together with me is my friend and co-host, André Correia.
Hello and welcome to another show of CRUZAMENTO Podcast. Today we have with us Mark Hamill. Hello, Mark. Very welcome to this show.
Bom dia. Hey guys, how you doing? Great to be here.
Thanks, Mark. You told us that you're creating people and histories. So our first question, in 30 seconds, who is Mark Hamill?
Wow, thanks, Andrea. No pressure with 30 seconds. So, I mean, personally, look, I'm Irish. I live between London and Switzerland. I have twin boys, 2 dogs, and 1 wife. My background is 25 years in executive search, and as we're going to explore through the conversation today, the last 5 years helping health technology companies build advisory boards globally.
Lovely. And let's pick it from that. So considering the focus of this podcast on healthcare, technology, and sustainability, how do you see the role of an advisory board, and which specific skills and expertise should board members possess to effectively address the complex challenges in these 3 fields, Mark?
Well, I love the way it goes from a super easy question to an incredibly layered, complex question. Guys, that's fantastic. So look, I think, look, in principle, maybe if we start with, at what point would you need an advisory board, or when does it become beneficial if you're a health tech or a pure tech or a mental health company? I mean, there's so many incredible, as you guys know, there's so many incredible in Europe and the US and in emerging markets, incredible entrepreneurs around the world who are looking to go from startup to scale up to investor backed growth companies. We work really in the kind of scale up onwards, but we have a lot of exposure to startup as well. But ultimately, everything plays into the loneliness of being a CEO, being a founder. I mean, that scary situation when you've got the idea, either from a scientific point of view, from a concept point of view, from a commercial point of view, and you believe passionately in it, and you're looking to take it to market and roll it out and grow it and, give this baby life. Yeah. And that's a pretty scary kind of phase to be at. Exciting, but scary at the same time. So what we found is people have a perception that building a board or an advisory board is a hugely complex thing. I mean, it's not. It's really surrounding yourself with 2 or 3 experienced, either from a market point of view, from a vertical point of view, from a technology point of view, from a fundraising point of view, from a scale and exit point of view, with 2 or 3 people who you can trust, who will share their experience with you and give you guidance on learning from their mistakes. Yeah. So you don't need to make the same mistakes as them as you look to take step by step your business forward. And that can be useful at a startup stage, particularly when it comes to fundraising, access to key decision makers. If you got a health product which is going to be sold into government sector or hospital sector, having somebody from former government sector, Ministry of Health, or from the hospital sector can just make your life so much easier. If they believe in your product and they can help you get to the right conversations, right decision makers. So advisory boards at startup and scale up phase are, in my opinion, the ROI is, 1,000,000x. It's just boundless in terms of the impact these people can make on your business. And you as maybe a first-time entrepreneur, not knowing what this is going to be like, not knowing what's ahead of you, not knowing how, should I hire in a junior CTO, or should I is it possible for me to go all out and with an equity deal, hire in somebody more senior who can take me on the next 5-year cycle rather than the first 12 months. So, all those experience shares, a good advisory board member can absolutely help you with.
And Mark, just before going a bit more into deep on the virtual advisory board, and we like to provide examples. So you're discussing about this transition for executive roles. Could you share a success story of a leadership transition that actually resulted in a significant positive impact on healthcare, technology, and sustainability?
Yeah, from an advisory board point of view, Andrea.
Yes, please.
So look, we've worked with, maybe two concrete examples. So we had a German-based health tech company, more product, so a little bit more on the med tech side. They had reached, it was owner, founder, entrepreneur. They'd reached about, over a 10-year period, so it was quite a long kind of cycle. They'd reached about 20 million euro revenue. This entrepreneur given his life to this business to grow it from 0 up to 20 million over a 10-year period. And he just felt that they wanted to go outside the German market, that in the DACH region, in continental Europe, there was going to be significant opportunity to take this product into new markets. It was in kind of a hearing device space. But they didn't have the know-how. He didn't have the know-how of that. He knew the German market incredibly well, didn't know surrounding markets. And we were able to connect him with an incredible, not quite recently retired, but somebody who finished their last executive role from the sensory audio medtech space, who knew who the key decision makers were in Europe, who the key opinion leaders were. And within kind of the engagement was super fast. It was a base comp plus an equity piece. They were going to meet every quarter and then do a monthly session, catch up with the CEO and the advisor. Within 3 months, the level of conversation that they were able to have in the external markets they were looking to grow had led to kind of a growing order book, which was substantially greater than they had ever imagined. So just again, the impact it's not just one, but the right person can make in terms of that CEO's life and his vision to kind of grow this business and take this launch.
Beautiful, Mark. Thank you so much for those sharings. And Andrea already mentioned the virtual advisory board before. And for the ones that see us, they might be curious about your background, Mark. Can you please tell us more about the virtual advisory board, VAB community? I guess it was a COVID baby, and it started by a need that you identified, right, Mark?
So exactly, Daniel. So VAB is a COVID baby. We were all kind of stuck behind laptops, obviously, learning how to use Teams, Zoom, all these platforms that we didn't know before. And so yeah, absolutely, Daniel. VAB is a COVID baby. We were all learning these technologies like Teams, Zoom, and becoming kind of used to talking and having conversations and building relationships behind a screen. So for me, I had a lot of my entrepreneurial friends, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs globally, reach out at that time and say, excuse the language, holy shit, like we don't know what's going on. I mean, our whole world is changing. We need access to more knowledge, more insight, different market input. So this whole kind of, again, that loneliness of being a CEO was, hyper growth was just that exploited this need to suddenly talk to people and gain their experience. So the community was built based on a need of entrepreneurs needing connectivity, insight, conversation, shared experience with senior leaders with differing experiences. Nobody knew what was going on and when COVID was going to end. So there's a huge kind of uncertainty shape there. But it was really that ability to match people for interesting conversations. And that's, always been my passion. People and stories, coffees and conversations. And those coffees and conversations became virtual during COVID, and the virtual advisory board was kind of born out of a situation where there was panic in the markets, panic in business communities. But through conversation, you could, maybe ease the burden a little bit in terms of market access, market insight, what's going on. Fundraising was complicated at that time as well. But after a few months, you could see for a lot of businesses, the uncertainty created incredible opportunities as well, particularly the technology-based companies or those more agile businesses. So in a startup scale-up space, some companies could pivot and use the pandemic as an incredible launch pad. Others couldn't. Yeah, so it was like a very tragic time for many, but an opportunity for others. And again, through that power of connection, we were able to kind of create this, and it didn't start as a business, guys. It was a passion project with a purpose of virtual connectivity at kind of C-suite advisory board level. It turned into a community and a business. And when I brought in David as my co-founder, suddenly we found ourselves 3 years later with 600 members globally across 65 countries and a full-time team of 15. US, Latin America, Europe, Asia Pacific. So it turned into something fun. I mean, for me, look, it's like I said, it's an amplification of what I love doing, which is people and stories, but ultimately it's fun. And look, it's wrong to say it saves lives. I mean, hopefully you're going to put people together who can make that happen. That's not what we do, but creating those connections, those trusted recommendations, building those bridges, that's what we love doing, and allowing the community take its own life as well. So it's a member-driven community, guys. So we have members who will say, look, we want to develop an AI community within VAB or an ESG. You mentioned ESG earlier, Daniel. Our members created our ESG kind of community or network within VAB. So where members have passion around verticals, key topics within the boardroom, we give them the space and the support, to drive those kind of special projects or deeper dives into particular areas. So it's, having it go beyond kind of Mark and David's concept is super important, because there's life beyond us, and the magic is within the member-to-member exchange, and having these incredible people, like Daniel, just get involved and share and talk and benefit and add value. I mean, it's people and conversations make the difference.
And you alluded to the boards being informed. You alluded to the pandemics, which also accelerated a lot, not only the technology developments, but everything we do today. And in this rapidly evolving technology landscape, how can boards stay informed and ensure that they have access to the necessary expertise to navigate the intersection of this technology and healthcare?
I think that really does fall under the remit of the advisory board and the CEO. I think ensuring that you are constantly leaning into best practice, new technology, new trends, where exponential growth can happen, where challenges will be, where opportunities are. I think there's a lifelong learning theme which should run through advisory boards, from CEO to advisory board members, or from advisory board members to CEO. That lifelong learning and that curiosity, that permanent curiosity, I think is essential, because I mean, there's so many AI, ChatGPT, there's so many incredible things going on that are pretty scary if you don't understand it. But again, having an advisor who has knowledge of that and whose role is maybe looking into future technology is a great asset to have. So I think you can almost create a space on, if you're a very technology driven company, even if you're not, but your business is going that way, having somebody who's going to hold or be accountable for, where is this business going to go in 5 years, and be responsible to the advisory board or the CEO to look at new trends, new themes, new technologies, new threats I mean, the new threat bit is incredibly important. I mean, you lean into cybersecurity. So we have a lot of companies now looking for a cybersecurity expert on their board, data, GDPR. So this, like, you can get smacked in the face left, right, and center with all these crazy things. So I think as an advisory board, trusting your advisory board or mandating your advisory board to own that is very, very important as a CEO. You don't need to feel all the pressure to run the executive side and run everything else. You can have people there to help you with that. Yeah.
This permanent curiosity you touched upon, Mark, very, very interesting. And you already alluded a couple of times to ESG, which links obviously with sustainability.
Yeah.
And this is a growing concern and also seen at times as a spend rather than an investment. Not necessarily that I agree with that, just as a disclaimer. How can boards, in your view, Mark, drive sustainability initiatives within organizations, and what impact can this have on long-term success and societal well-being, in your views?
The back, perfect. I think the ESG theme, Daniel, is, look, I mean, we've had mandates for ESG experts since we started. Yeah. So as companies have embraced it, if that's kind of old, kind of consumer type businesses looking to kind of lean into how do we do this? What do we need to know? What's the minimum we need to do? And where can we kind of push beyond the minimum acceptable level from a consumer point of view? So some companies looking at it from, look, it's just not perceived as we need to do something. Yeah. So let's at least take minimum steps, which everybody has to start somewhere. And then other companies are like absolutely pushing the boundaries out in climate tech, and I mean, incredible kind of organizations being built. So really embracing and being driven by an ESG kind of mandate or policy or guidelines. Others are at earlier stages. So look, where you are in your life cycle, where you start is so you can you can spend a lot as a marketing game if you want, or you can actually do shit about it. Yeah. So there's kind of little roles in between. The more agile the company, the more you can really, impact. Yeah. The bigger the behemoth, the harder it is. And maybe you're just going to like spend to say you're doing good, but okay, really are you? Like there's a legitimate question there. So we had a case recently again with a medical company, emerging market. And the mandate was an ESG expert, female board member who would come in and sit on the advisory board, who would bring that diversity of thought, that diversity and that pure knowledge of ESG into the boardroom. So we had a mandate to look right across Europe to find that profile. And I was very pleased to see it was, we maybe estimated it was going to be quite a small pool of talent, but it was broader than I expected. And some incredible female talent out there, really leading on ESG in the boardroom, which was wonderful to see.
And Mark, we've been talking about leadership, and I think you've mentioned this earlier. I wanted to pick up on that point as well for the next question. So senior leaders, such as CEOs, often face a challenge or the burden of loneliness. How can organizations and boards create a support system to mitigate these issues and ensure the well-being of their top executives?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I think it's, we spoke about kind of mental health businesses. I think the mental health of your whole business, I can speak more cogently about it from a kind of a CEO C-suite perspective. It's and maybe more from entrepreneurial circles, of course from corporate as well. But it's exhausting. I mean, it's an incredible amount of pressure people are under. When we look at entrepreneurs, I mean, you talk about, resilience that comes up as the number one requirement again and again and again. I mean, these environments look, everybody's job is hard, no matter what you do. Yeah, we're all kind of stuck in here, and you see yourself, and that's your comparison. There is, I think, not better or worse, but to be an entrepreneur or a founder, you probably, maxed out credit cards, put the house on the line, to follow this dream, to fulfill this vision. And that's a particular stress to kind of live with. So I think, again, an advisory board can be, a true advisory board as a CEO, you should be able to be completely vulnerable with. you should be able to say, like, I am really struggling. Like, everything is on the line here. And it's not even the financial side. Emotionally, I'm like all in. I'm not spending time with my wife, with my kids. My physical health is in neglect because I'm here at the screen like every day. So look, it's and again, not comparing. I mean, you know, if you're a teacher and nurse, I mean, it's ridiculous amounts of stress you're going to be under as well. But like I said, here we're talking about kind of business leaders. So I think, you know, an advisory board, because they're people who've kind of been there and seen it and done it, they know the shoes. So I think as an entrepreneur, having another entrepreneur, maybe who's exited, who's had a few failures, you know, because we all learn more through the battle scars. Yeah, then, and nobody has it super easy. I mean, anybody who tells you it was like just hyper growth the whole way, profitability, that's bullshit. I mean, it doesn't happen. So the more relevant stories are failures and how you bounce back from failures. So the lessons from, look, when it didn't go right, when I made the wrong hire, when I made that wrong decision, when I went in too fast on that deal, that's the super insight. So again, being able to talk vulnerably to a board advisor who's been in your position before or close to your position, it can just like that taking off that load of, I'm not alone. I'm not the only guy I'm not getting a response from the investment community. Why is it not happening? Is it my pitch? What am I doing wrong? Can you help me with it? Spar with me on, you know, making my pitch tighter so we can kind of get that funding, next round of funding in. So just having somebody to talk to, it just makes a big difference. So I think, again, when we go back to look, the, you know, health of a business, the mental health of the leadership team, the wellness of that leadership team, it's inextricably linked. I mean, you can't have a really high performing business and an incredibly unstable and fragile team. I mean, at one point that will impact that. So how can you kind of both kind of work well together? So, or there's a natural correlation there. So I think as an advisory board, you know, protecting, nursing, guiding, sharing with your CEO and probably their team as well, maybe a CFO, COO. Look, everybody's kind of exposed on that voyage. And I think because the advisory board they're at a different stage in life, typically, they can give that external perspective, which can just make a difference. Just knowing, oh, thank God, I'm not the only one who couldn't raise $10 million on their Series B. You know, like, okay, well, that's great to hear. I'm not the only one. So what did you do about it, and how can we kind of make it successful next time? Or our product launch was rejected. Okay, shit, like we had everything in on this. You know, what do we need to do? Well, look, don't worry about that. That happened to me 3 times, and here's what we did to kind of fix it. It just makes the load easier. Yeah, so I think there is a massive role the advisory board can play in kind of, and because it all comes down to that, like, trust, you know, that real comfort that this is a trusted conversation, confidentiality won't be broken. So I feel comfortable. I can tell you my deepest, darkest fears, and then let's go from there. That's beautiful. If you can get that in your advisors, you're sorted.
Excellent, Mark. And obviously that's a process, right? It's not something that we can take as granted. Still, you touched upon before, and we really liked it, the curiosity. We would love to hear your thoughts, Mark. So what strategies or approaches can senior leaders, can be boards and as well CEOs, CFOs, senior leaders adopt to maintain curiosity, continuously seek knowledge, and foster, maybe more difficult, a learning culture within their organizations? What are your views?
Look, I've been a member of the Young Presidents Organization, a peer-to-peer, Vistage, some peer-to-peer groups. So I think there's anything kind of peer-to-peer advisory based on shared experience, lifelong learning. For female leaders, there's Chief, European Women on Boards. There's a lot of communities out there that really focus on that lifelong learning, shared experience thing. And I think as a curious leader, getting involved in that is super important. I think how leadership communities can work together. I mean, there's entrepreneurs organizations, so many kind of networking community groups out there. So look, I'm a huge fan of that. I mean, that was a huge driver, having been part of YPO and Vistage, seeing the benefit. I mean, when I did a management buyout on my business, had an exit to private equity, I had no idea what I was doing, absolutely no idea. And when you're doing an exit, the guys on the other side of the table are doing these deals for breakfast every day. And for you, it's maybe the one time in your life you're going to do it. So how can you quickly surround yourself with people who've been through it already? And like we said before, that they're not going to share just the good stuff, but they'll share the scary moments and when it didn't go right and what the impact was on your emotion and psychology and the impact on your team, who you were leaving behind when you sold. So getting that information, that kind of pre-knowledge was incredibly insightful. So I think join a peer-to-peer organization, find one that fits you. There's so many out there. I mentioned a few. In the board space, VAB serves that purpose a little bit, but really in the board space. So I think there's that would be probably my biggest recommendation. I think then, of course, there are educational courses, Singularity University, you can do Harvard, Financial Times, INSEAD. I mean, there's so many courses out there you can do as well. But I think the peer-to-peer, my probably biggest recommendation.
And Mark, let's look at the future now. In this third season, we talk about technology, health, and sustainability. We've covered some of these topics throughout our conversation. But looking at the intersection of these, how do you think we are doing today that will have a positive impact in, say, 10 years' time? And 10 years is quite a big chunk of time.
What we're doing from a kind of inspired leadership point of view, Andrea, sorry, could you just repeat the last bit of the question?
Yeah, so what it surely linked to leadership. So what is happening today that will have the most significant impact in the long run from a leadership standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, we've been lucky to have a few leaders in VAB who are focused on kind of the future of work, you know, where it's heading. A lot of it leans into kind of AI, the fears and threats and the benefits around AI, machine learning. So look, we do see a lot of that kind of impacting. I still think, you know, investing in entrepreneurs for me is probably the most significant. So countries or sectors that will continue to invest in next level talent, next level leaders, next level ideas. That's where I think significant growth opportunities, new technologies, new remedies will come from. So I think, and businesses as well. So large corporates also, you know, almost looking at themselves more as being not just one large behemoth, but we're actually a combination of 20 kind of smaller businesses, and how those smaller businesses can then go deeper into their areas of expertise and, you know, invest in newer technologies, new entrepreneurs. So corporate has a big role to play in that as well. And you see many of them kind of following that kind of route. I think, you know, probably when I look at education, so my kids are 14 going through education, I still just don't see enough in terms of like business, entrepreneurship. And I think that's a huge shame. I mean, I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur until I had a chance to do a management buyout of the business when I was, well, like 36, 37. I presumed I was going to be a corporate hired gun. And this changed my life completely and opened my eyes to all these new opportunities. So I do think the education of, you know, younger generation, our kids' generation, how they could be supported to learn more about, you know, being an entrepreneur, being an inventor, being creative, seeing that, you know, going into research, embracing research and entrepreneurship, you know, can lead to incredible things. I think it's that would be maybe more my hope for the future, Andrea, to answer the question. But I think anybody who can kind of get that balance right is going to lead to significant breakthroughs for everybody.
Excellent, Mark. So we want to thank you very much for your time and availability, Mark. So to our audience, today we talked with Mark about so many topics, so different topics. So the permanent curiosity that advisory boards must have, importance of being up to speed in areas like technology, healthcare, and sustainability. And for some of you, obviously, the surprising maybe element of how lonely are senior leaders. It's a fairly lonely kind of path. Maybe the very last question, Mark, in case our audience wants to know more about you or follow your activity, where can they find you online?
So don't Google me, because my name is the exact same as Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, the actor. So if you Google Mark Hamill, you'll end up with a lot of Star Wars, which is great. It's great for restaurant reservations and stuff like that. So I'm very appreciative of the name. But you'll find me on LinkedIn. You can find me through Virtual Advisory Board, the Naked Headhunter, but a very active user on LinkedIn. So just ping me a message. And look, I love talking and sharing stories. So that's my passion. And I've always seen myself as a curator rather than an aggregator of stories. So I love sharing, and super happy when people reach out. So absolutely.
So Mark, may the force be with you. Thank you very much for your time. If you like the discussion today, push the like button below and subscribe to our podcast. This way, more people will be able to find the show. And you can also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and other social networks. This information will be in our show notes. You are also invited to subscribe to our newsletter. Bye for now, and we hope to see you very soon for another episode of CRUZAMENTO Podcast. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.